My arms out, they're longer than somebody else's. What is deceptive? You know, it's just like funny to me. I was like, yeah, all right. And everything was always deceptive, you know. And so that's when I was like, all right, well, you know, because in my mind, I don't always see what everyone's thinking, you know. In a lot of ways, I'm kind of in my own world because I'm just out on the court and playing. I see everybody. When I line up against somebody, I'm not looking at anything but just what is their game, what is my game. But how everyone else is viewing things was very different than how I was viewing it. And so, yeah, a big part of that, you know, is you got to prove yourself a lot more, and it's hard. And there's a lot of times where I saw other people getting opportunities, and I was just like, dude, I don't know how to say it, but like, I play better than them, I was better, whatever, and just like, for whatever reason, they got chosen. And then the other side that I've always said is the pros is kind of like what you said. Now that I'm here, it's become this phenomenon in a lot of ways because so many people are rooting for me so enthusiastically. Because if I was just another African American point guard, like, and you tweeted about me, there wouldn't be people vocally caring, you know what I mean? Unless I was like a big time, like top notch, whatever. But you know, and so I have this huge fan base, and this fan base that is so loyal and so diehard, and a lot of that is the pros of being different or being, you know, an Asian American guard.
Speaking of your fans, you told them over Facebook the other day that you don't like a suit out?
Yeah, I've been getting so much
because it's an absurd position. What? So wait, you do like a Facebook Live every month or something like this?
That was my
context. Sorry.
That was just every year I do a fan event. And so so once a year I just want to thank my fans. So this year was the Facebook Live thing, and someone asked me about it.
And you took a very hard position against all suit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I
mean, this is another thing of like this. The sort of amount of attention that you get, it's like people now know that you don't like soup, and not everybody's happy. People want to know.
People want to know. The most mad, I mean, my mom is the most mad out of anybody because there's been hundreds of times where she's made soup and I didn't drink it. And I was like, Mom, I refuse to. And go on up and be like, all right, here's some soup. You're not leaving the table until you drink it. And I'd be like, okay. She'd walk away and you pour it down the sink. I've already admitted this to her, so it's okay. But I just don't like it. I don't know how else to say it. There's no science or rhyme or reason. Like growing up, I never liked it, and now that I'm 28, I still don't like it. So I don't like pho. So when I eat ramen, I prefer to have all the soup. It's cooked in the soup, and then you separate them, and you drain it, and then I eat it.
That's just noodles.
It's just, I'm sorry. I don't like soup. I never will.
Well, now that we're past that part of journalism. I do want to sort of keep on this theme though because it seems not on the soup thing.
I don't know what else you want me to say.
That was not even a plan of mine. I just thought about it. Just sort of it seems like the race thing with you has in some ways been implicit, and then sometimes it seems like, especially in college, it got really explicit.
Yeah.
People saying nasty things to you. Slurs and things from the stands, even like opposing coaches, I think you said before. How do you, you talked a little bit about how you manage yourself on the floor to try to keep outside thoughts away, but what was your sense that must have been really tough. Was that just the beginning, or was it all the way through, or?
So I grew up in Northern California, so it was pretty diverse out there, so actually I didn't deal with a lot of that growing up, and growing up I was, on most teams I was the best player too, and people knew of me in the area, so a very small area of basically Palo Alto, and it's like the two neighboring cities, and so the people there knew that I could play, and so I grew up in that bubble, and I never dealt with it, and then every year we'd have this called nationals in AAU, and so we'd fly to like Florida or wherever and play, and we would always have this opening ceremony, and you would walk down, and I hated it because every team would have to walk down the aisle. And every time I walked down, everybody would be like, yo, he's Asian. But it wouldn't, like, I could hear it, you know? It's like, yo, he's Asian. It's not like, yo, he's Asian. Like, I could hear everything they would do. I'm right here. And then, or sometimes they'd be like, Yao Ming, or go back to China, or whatever. And so I always hated that because that was a new environment. I wasn't in my bubble. I wasn't the guy. I didn't have that respect. And then, so that was my first exposure. And it wasn't that bad. It was once a year, twice a year. Then I got to college, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm in this academically very intellectually refined environment, whatever. And I'll go to these other Ivy League schools, and that was the most extreme racism I've ever dealt with. I remember I got blocked one time in a game, and one of the players was like, yeah, get that out of here, you chink. And I was like, and the ref was right there, and the ref heard it too, and my teammate heard it, and his teammates heard it, and we all just stopped. And then he said it again, and then and my teammate like went up to the ref and was like, dude, how are you not even doing anything? Give him a technical, do something, like you just heard it. And then I think that's what really shocked me was that other players would say it, because the fans, they always, they've always said racist stuff, and they've always done stuff. Even now to this day, you go to NBA arenas, guys will say racist things, chicken lo mein or whatever, like, which is a really good dish, by the way. I don't like being called that. Yeah. So it was just, but I think like going through this whole process, I think the turning moment for me when it comes to racism is my assistant coach. He played at Duke. He was McDonald's All-American, Kenny Blakeney, and he was a co-captain at Duke with Grant Hill and a big-time player. And he basically pulled me after that game when they were calling me chink, and he was like, hey, like, I know how you feel. And he told me about his experiences, about how he would eat on the side of the street, like, before a game, and people would see him as a black player and, like, throw eggs at him, throw water bottles at him, or whatever, and how he dealt with that. And then he basically told me, like, dude, I want you to take every negative feeling you have, and I want you to use that, like, and funnel that in the right way where, like, when you go on the court, basically, like, you play better, and you destroy them on the court, and you don't have to say anything, you don't have to whatever, but you take all that negative energy and you turn it into something that becomes very powerful, and it motivates you to play in a way that is very, very powerful. And that was when I started to flip the switch from just like pure like raw anger to like, now it's become a weapon. Now like when people talk trash to me, actually I play much better. One of the things that like I think like people who are close to me know is like don't legitimately like talk trash to me, because if you get me going, like now I know how to like make myself, like I know how to control it better. And it all started because like I guess that experience in college where I was dealing with like legit racism.
Yeah. Do you think, and this is kind of my last on this, but I do wonder, do you think that affected how your early NBA career went as well, sort of the D-League and stuff like that? Like, do you think you weren't getting the kind of chances you otherwise would have?
Yeah, I always, I'm subjective, but I do my best to be objective. Like, I went through the NBA draft process, and I know I played really well, and I know I played well enough to be drafted. And actually, we had a couple like general managers call my agent after the draft and said like, this is before New York and before I had established myself as an NBA player. But even right after the draft, they called him and were like, we're really sorry, we should have chosen Jeremy. He played well enough to be drafted. We just couldn't do it. Whether it's get management on board or get the rest of the coaching staff on board or whatever it was. Mike D'Antoni, when I was with the Knicks at the time, after my workout, he pulled me into his office and was like, "Okay, look, like that was an amazing workout. I'm really, really impressed with you. We have 2 second-round draft picks, and like we're seriously going to consider you." And then like a week later, like we couldn't even get in touch with them with the whole organization. Like they wouldn't even respond to my agent's calls, and so I just didn't really understand what's going on. But it definitely factored into it, I would say. And I don't want to sound like I'm just like whining and the whole place, like this whole thing is messed up. But like, because I know the flip side is, dude, I'm where I am today. I have this position, I have this platform because I'm Asian.
point, that was like sort of my next question in terms of getting chances. I've always like been interested in that guy. Just from the Suns time, the 7 seconds or less, he's kind of on this plane. It's this like sort of basketball Svengali idea, and I just kind of, how was your time? I mean, it was so short. How was your time being coached by Mike D'Antoni, who had coached Steve Nash, and sort of, it definitely seemed like there was some recognition of your, even though now I know he wouldn't take your call, so. But
no, he would have done that. That was, I was saying, the organization.
Yeah.
So not exactly him, but like the one story I tell about, or I don't really tell the story that much, but the one story I remember the most from that whole insanity stretch was, I remember we had won 7 in a row, and then we just lost to, at that time it was the New Orleans Hornets.
Mm-hmm.
At that time it was the New Orleans Hornets. We had just lost. I think I had 8 or 9 turnovers. It was my career high in turnovers. And I was just so disappointed in myself. The streak ended, whatever. We lost. We were in a playoff race, and I remember my phone rang. I didn't know it was him at first, but I picked up, and he was like, "Hey, this is Coach." I'm like, "Oh, what's up?" I was like, "Sorry about tonight." He's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I don't care about tonight at all." He's like, "Next game, if you get 15 turnovers, that's great. Go get 15 turnovers. I don't care how many turnovers you get. I just want you to keep charging and attacking the basket and making plays. He's like, for every, like, if you get 15 turnovers next game, you probably get 30 assists. I don't care. Like, just keep playing, keep attacking, and keep being aggressive." And I can't tell you just how much that changed, like, my mindset, because I was really still in a fragile mental place where I was still trying to please everybody and be this player that everybody wanted me to be. And so, that was my first real hit from insanity, where it's like, man, this is your first really, really bad game. How are you going to respond? And when I heard him say that, you don't hear a lot of NBA coaches say, "Go ahead and get 15 turnovers." Actually, he might be the only NBA coach that admits it. Go get 15 turnovers, I don't care. But to me, it was the ultimate empowerment, ultimate green light of just, hey, I trust your game, I trust your instincts, I trust your talent, and just go hoop. And he played himself, so he knows, like, that's when players function best, is when they're in a zone, they're free flowing. Like, when you're in a zone, you're not thinking about, like, you're not analyzing, should I do this, should I do that, should I shoot, should I not shoot? Like, you're just in a zone. You let your talent take over. And that was what he was all about. And so that to me was like, man, I want to find a coach like him who I can play for the rest of my career.
Yeah. There were a couple things toward the end of your time with the Knicks. You had a meniscus, right? There was a knee thing.
Yeah.
And then, but also, D'Antoni kind of left town.
Yeah.
Left or was asked to leave. It left that really ambiguous. That was one of the weirder coaching movements that I've kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah. And
no comment.
Right. Well, I'll say that it seemed like it came from sort of maybe his style working better with you than it kind of did with Carmelo Anthony, who was the star of the team, or the person that had that's weed. I'm not on the Knicks, but I spent all this money to get or whatever, and so this tension, it seemed, was. But either way, I wonder if you think that if he had stuck around your time in New York, it would have lasted longer.
That's a good question. I've literally never thought of that.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe like when it first happened, like when he first had left, I was like, but I didn't really think much after that. Yeah, I guess it's hard to tell because organizations are so like, it's so hard to really understand from a player's level how organizations really work, because obviously you have the coaching staff, you have management, you have the owner, and I'm not in any of these conversations. I don't know who holds the most power, who's making the big time decisions and whatever. So I would say I can only probably guess that it would have it would have increased my chances of staying, obviously because you like me, and that's not any that's no secret. Yeah, it probably could have helped.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Because I just wonder, it seems to me like NBA careers are so contingent on who you're playing for and like the system you're in. Like, you know, you talk about the Lakers, Bryant was coaching this kind of Princeton offense, right? And it's like definitely you.
Yeah, I went to Harvard, so obviously.
But it's like it's not the sort of pick and roll offense that you have proven to be so good. I mean, that's sort of your style seems to be. I mean, that seems to still be your favorite way to sort of be in control of the ball, have a pick come and then go to work that way. So, because you sort of after New York, you go to the Rockets, and it's just like these little strokes of luck. Then James Harden comes to the Rockets, and so in some ways, you guys occupy some of the same spaces on the floor. Quick question: speaking of, you've played with Carmelo Anthony, you've played with James Harden, you played with Kobe Bryant. Who is the biggest ball hog you've ever played with? Maybe it's not one of those guys. I just wonder, like these guys like the ball.
See the camera's going up now. I don't know, man.
It's just us, though.
Right? I don't know. That's a tough question to answer. Not because it's like I'm not saying they're all ball hogs. It's just not that simple.
They're all ball hogs, actually.
Yeah, it's not that. It's just not that simple. I think because a lot of it also is what the team needs and what the coach pushes, and the coach pushes. So it's not always like contingent on an individual, which is why I guess it's not so black and white. So basically, what I'm doing is not answering your question.
It did seem like, and you don't have to confirm or deny, it did seem, especially on that Rockets team, because there was the season when Harden first came, and then the next season is when Howard came, right? And you were still there for that.
Yeah.
And it seemed to the lay viewer that was not the most coherent bunch of guys. Like, that they were like, had lots of great individual talent, and but for some reason the sum was kind of less than parts. What is that like being in an NBA locker room where guys might not like each other? How do you kind of, because I think the rest of us imagine NBA locker rooms as this like buddy cop thing. It's like everybody is together. It's like, I don't know, fucking howls. I don't know what happened. Just, fun of some kind.
For sure.
But when it's not, I imagine that, you're traveling with these guys, you still have to see them all the time. How does that go when it's like there's a little tension in the locker room?
Yeah, actually, I think one thing that NBA players are really good at is compartmentalizing things because we have to. So what happens on the court a lot of times doesn't care. Like I don't know if I've been in a locker room setting where it's very obvious that two players legitimately hate each other as people. On every team, people don't like playing with each other as players, but they're able to separate that. So in the Houston locker room, actually, it wasn't. If you just looked at us and how we interacted off the court, you would think we were all really good friends. We go eat together, we hang out together. But on the court, we didn't mesh. And on the court, when things would get tough, guys would go their own way. And people would try to do things on their own versus try to get, come together and do it collectively. And I'm not even saying this to be like, try to save face for somebody or be politically correct, like legitimately, because, we deal with the NBA season. There's so many things that happen. We compete like right now in training camp. We have 20 guys there, and 15 aren't going to make the team. So it's not, so 5 people aren't going to make it. But it's not like if you look at a locker room, no one hates anyone. It's like someone's not going to talk to someone. Everyone's friends, and you spend time with each other. Everyone becomes friends, and you end up becoming really close with the person you're fighting for the same job for. And so that's just what ends up happening in the league because guys get turned over, traded, everything. And so actually, there wasn't that much beef off the court. It was just when we got on the court, there were times where we'd look around and be like, dude, we're just not a team. We just didn't play together. And then afterwards, it'd be like, guys would still possibly go eat with each other. Maybe they let it go over and like lost some steam that night, and the next day they come back and there'd still be hee hee ha ha whatever. And that's just really how it was. So it wasn't that weird or that awkward. I mean, sometimes after games, it'd be like,
So you got, after that, you went to the Lakers. And I kind of want to ask about this sort of, guys in the league always talk about, it's a business, and you kind of have to take it that way. You can't get too kind of attached to one place or another. But I do want to ask about how it is to be traded. Like you got to move. It's just all this logistical stuff. Yeah. Before we were just talking about how you are moving in right now, as you're doing preseason, you're also shopping for your home and stuff like this. How does it feel the first couple times, between New York and Houston and Los Angeles? How does it feel to experience that part of this job, which is I think unique to sports?
Yeah, I just think over time you just get used to it. This is my 7th year, and it's my 6th city. And if you want to include D-League, this is my 8th city. So I'm just used to it. If I don't move every summer, if there's one summer where I don't move, I'm like, what's wrong? Something's not right. And that's just because I've gotten used to it. So to answer your question specifically about that trade, I still remember it was 2:30 a.m. I was in, I think it was Beijing or Shanghai, Beijing for my Adidas tour, and my agent called my hotel phone. That's when I knew I got traded, because no one uses the hotel phone. So it started ringing. It was a landline, and I was like, oh. And he told me I got traded to the Lakers, and I was just so excited at the time to just leave Houston and go to LA, because I just thought it was going to be a much better opportunity, and I would be able to start again, because I had lost my starting spot in Houston, and so I was so excited. I got up at 2:30. I would literally sprint down the hall, and I had my trainer, my cousin, I had my parents, I had my manager, I had my agent. They were all there. So I started knocking on their doors to wake them up. It's 2:30 in the morning, and I'm not exactly sure where their rooms are, because most of the time they give me a really nice suite, and we all do our meetings there. So team meetings, every morning we meet there, every night we meet there to recap. And so I'd never really go to their room. I was knocking on random doors. And I was getting yelled at legitimately. People were like, what? I was actually people were yelling at me, but I was just knocking on pretty much every door. I was that excited. And I would look down the hall, and then, I would just I would knock on 10 doors and then see, one of them's got to be them. And so I finally got them all together, and I was like, hey, I just got to trade to the Lakers. And I couldn't sleep. I was so excited. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. I ended up going to the gym at 5 or 6 in the morning to work out. And then I took the first flight out for my physical, and I was just overwhelmed with excitement, and I just kept telling myself, every time I would get sad about changing teams or getting anything, I would just remind myself of what it felt like to get cut, because I got cut twice, and so there's no worse feeling than getting cut. So I was like, hey, this is much better. And then but I'm not gonna lie, whereas you guys at some time, that's why this year in free agency, I was like, I signed a 3-year deal, and I was like, I want to sign a 3 or 4 year deal, because I don't want to move anymore. And so I've spent a lot of time just really investing in, even just where I live, making my home, making it feel like my home, because I know hey, I really want to put my stuff down and really lay my roots here for a little bit.
Does a longer term deal change the way you play the game too? Because I imagine if you're on a 1-year deal, or you're feeling less in it, that you might be sort of every time you're on the floor pushing.
Yeah.
Does it make you more at ease just to play a game as well, or?
I would say it was more so starting versus coming off the bench. Because coming off the bench is I gotta make something happen quick, otherwise I'm gonna be back on the bench and I'm gonna be done for the first half. Starting, hey, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna come back in, and so you're more at ease and whatever. And so there are times in the past where I'll come off the bench and I'll really press, and I really try to make something happen. I feel like starting, you can dictate the game and let the game kind of unfold before you, and have the time and the rhythm and, to kind of impose your will through the course of the game. And so I think more so just starting actually allows me to play a different different playing style.
Got it. You mentioned sort of traveling on behalf of Adidas, who you endorse. How is it to? I mean, it seems like being a basketball player is in some ways a professional basketball player is in some ways like being a miniature corporation, right? Like you've got your product, which is your play on the court, but you're also, if you're lucky, endorsing, brands and doing other things. How have you thought about the off the court stuff, having an agent and a trainer, all these other people that like work around you in this way? Is that at all a distraction, or how does that work? How does it make you? Yeah.
That was one of the hardest things that I've ever gone through is working with my team. And I'm not to say that they're a bad team; they're an unbelievable team. I love that, but it was one of the most challenging things I've ever been through because I didn't go to I went to school, but I didn't study to be like a business owner. And you got to think like when New York happened, I was 22, 23. It wasn't like I knew how to be a CEO. It wasn't like I knew how to do marketing or understand market value or branding or whatever you want, licensing, whatever you want to go down the line with. And then on top of that, like I have people working for me, so now I'm like choosing salaries. Like how do you choose salaries? How do you understand their market values? How do you understand inflation and how salaries come and raise over time, or promotions, or how do you do you do one thing or treat someone one way and that affects how someone else sees it. And all of a sudden I'm realizing, man, I'm legitimately a CEO of a corporation that I need to learn how to manage properly. And that's not even like, this is my second job. So I felt like for a while, I was like, man, I got 2 full-time jobs. Mm-hmm. I go to practice, I come home dead tired, and I have to do all this business stuff, emails, whatever, and figure out. And it's really, really hard. I made a lot of mistakes. And I think now I'm in such a better place, and I figure out what works. I have the right people around me to really figure things out. And now the things I'm really interested in, like even right now, I'm just wearing clothes, but it's like I got a Tag watch and Adidas shoes, and these are 2 companies that I get to endorse, and I actually really like I like watches, I like shoes, and these are 2 companies that I've kind of handpicked, and we have a vision of like where do we want to go, what companies do we want to be associated with, and why, and what is the vision, what is all that. And
you just endorsed them on our time. That was amazing.
That was slightly unintentional, but that's the part that off the court that I'm like, man, there's so much more to it. There's so much, because you see things and you're like, you think that it's so simple, but it's not. And so now actually I spend a decent amount of time like, all right, well, when I'm done playing, what do I want my legacy to be? Or like when, let's say God forbid, but let's say like I die tomorrow, or I die in 5 years, like how will I want to have changed the world, or how would I want to have shaped the world, or what do I want the Jeremy Lin platform to be known for? And these are all high-level questions that take hours and hours of prayer and hours of work to be able to figure out where you want to go. And that's the part where early in my career I wanted nothing to do with. It's funny, we were on the way over, and the PR person at my agency, she's here today, and she was telling me, like, you're the first and only NBA player that when I asked you to do a 60 minutes interview, you asked me what 60 minutes. Like, that's who I was. I didn't know what 60 minutes was. Like, I didn't care for a lot of these things, and it wasn't until I started to understand, wow, like, you can actually impact lives, you can impact a lot of different things, that I started taking it a lot more seriously. And so now, I guess, I'm trying to be more like a businessman in terms of, like, understanding stuff and being more intentional about, like, where I want my platform to go.
You talked about after you retire, you talked, 27, being old man, and being not really, but, do you know what you want to do after you retire? Do you have a second act plan?
Yeah, I think if you were asking me today, it's always evolving, but if you're asking me today, like, what do you want to do when you're done playing? I want to do a combination of, I feel like my story is very unique, so I want to do some type of public speaking, like not full time or not be like a motivational speaker, but just to share my story, share my faith, what God's done in my life. I know I definitely want to do that in some part, some way, and then I want to spend a lot of time actually living in one city, like to be able to, because from a philanthropic standpoint, or from a, I have a foundation and I really love working with underprivileged children, and if I want to legitimately have like tangible on the ground impact, if if I play here for 7 months and then I go home to California for 5 months and then I change cities to another city for 7 months and I go, like there's no consistency there. It's hard to make a real tangible impact. And so what I want to do is actually just put my roots down in one community and just give my everything to them and really see and help these kids grow and whether it's making it to college or whether it's going through life issues or whether it's helping them be in a position where they can get a job to have sustainable income to be able to avoid some of the tough things that they're going through or the temptations that they're going through. Like these are things that I really want to do, and that's really what I went to school for. I majored in econ and minored in sociology, and it was really all about urban communities. How do you bring income and different things into poor neighborhoods? Why are poor neighborhoods poor? Like, what is the negative feedback loop or the never-ending cycle of how people do? Yeah, how do you break that chain? And so these are the things that really interest me.
You in Los Angeles, you played with someone who is now retired. I wonder how was to play with Kobe Bryant? This sort of the kind of NBA legend that he is, kind of weird personality that he also has. I wonder how it was to play with him, like sort of intensity that he has.
Intense is definitely a good word to describe him. The one thing I picked up from him is attention to detail. Like I thought I was detailed. You see like my apartment or whatever, you're like, okay, you're pretty detailed. But when I saw how he watched film, I was like, man, that's another level of detail. And so now I always try to challenge myself. Hey, when you're watching film, like, the one thing that really like blew my mind was, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna watch film with you one time. Show me what you see. And so we watched, a play where a point guard came off the screen and split the pick and roll. So basically, the ball is in the left hand. He split the pick and roll, and to get it, he'd have to reach out his right hand to grab the ball. And he was like, as a defender, one thing that I've learned is when someone splits the pick and roll and they're reaching with their right hand, he was like, just hit their right hand like that, just a half second. And the ref will never see it, the ref will never call it. And the ball takes one more dribble, and in that one dribble, usually the big man will come and steal the ball. So something so small, like you would never think about, like no basketball player no coach has ever talked about that. Like no one I've ever even spoken to the game about, and I've been around the game a lot, has ever been like, hey, when someone spits pick and roll, you try to hit their hand and they're going to reach the ball. Like it's just not like, no one thinks like that.
Yeah.
And so that level of detail, I was like, wow. And so now when I train or when I think about stuff or when I watch film, like I do it to another level. And that's really what I picked up from.
Who have been your favorite teammates? I remember one of the great things about watching you on the Knicks was like you and Landry Fields with these like increasingly complex handshakes, and it was like big man paddywhack. It was all that. I hope for my sort of Knicks fan heart, I hope that Landry's among those. But who have you like really just enjoyed on just a personal level being teammates?
Well, I'll start with the Knicks, but like Landry, Novak, and Jared Jeffries.
Yeah.
These are three guys that I talk to consistently. Actually, I just saw Landry. I flew to LA to do something with him, this event with him. But those three I'm really close to. And then there's a lot of other players, since then that I still keep in touch with and talk to. Even just last year, Marvin Williams, Kemba, Frank, Spencer. Like I still talk. Like I worked out with Spencer in Seattle, and I have a personal Snapchat, and me and Kemba always send funny Snapchats that troll each other back and forth. So like it's just like these guys are so normal, and so you create a lot of these friendships, and so definitely a lot of these. My all-time favorite teammates in terms of like, hey, if you would say like which two people like really affect the locker room or help the locker room or whatever, I would say Jared Jeffries and Marvin Williams.
Speaking of friendships and normalcy, you mentioned these like normal guys. How was your sort of incredible success? How did that affect your friendships from before the league? Like high school buddies? Do you still have like a lot of buddies from back home, or how does being famous and like rich and all these things, how does that affect these other kinds of
it affects a lot of them. And one thing that really stuck with me, I don't even know where or read it or heard it or whatever, but they always say like it's lonely at the top, and that's something that I really felt once New York happened, because to me it was like a lot of people were changing around me, and a lot of my friends who, you're just friends, you think everything's normal, and then they do things and you're like, okay, well, I probably can't trust you anymore. And so I've
Do things like asking for money or like what kinds of
But I
things?
mean, yeah, that plus anything else you can think of, a lot more than just that. But you just, it's not just it's family, it's everybody. Everything changes, and that was a big part of it. I talk about a lot, like, hey, I was scared. Like, that's really what it was. Is during that time I was scared because everyone around me was changing and doing different things. And I think now what you see is I've cut down a lot of my friends. I have a very tight circle, and I'm very, very close with the people that I choose to surround myself with. And that's really what it has to be at this point in time. Since I've, played in New York, like how many legitimate and close friends have I made? Not a lot. Like, definitely can count on my two hands how many friends I've made since then. You don't really make new friends. Aside from like other teammates who it's like there's natural built in trust, they wouldn't want anything from me. Mm-hmm. But so a lot of it changes, and it's scary, and you see a different side of people, and I had to kind of go through that process of like, man, like, all right, well, I don't really like. There was one point where I was like, I just hate people, like human beings. I just don't like human beings. And then you kind of get through that point, and you get to a point where you get past the initial shock and the denial, and then you just really start to be more thankful and you embrace it more. And so now that's kind of where I'm getting to, is like really embracing everything about like how formed and everything. And when things happen, because stuff still happens to this day, and you still have to deal with it, and you just kind of know how to deal with stuff. All right, well, that happened, that's fine. Like, move that to the side, or I'll stop talking to so and so, and you just go about your business. Versus in the past, you'd be like, I can't believe they did that. So you handle it differently, but it definitely, I would say it is lonely at the top, and it's hard at times.
So we're gonna open up for questions. There are microphones on either side. We're gonna ask that you go to those. But last question: how many wins are the Nets gonna get this year? Got you, Brooke Lopez, lots of great. Rondé Hollis Jefferson's really good. There's lots of good guys. How many wins? Make your prediction.
I don't know the number, but I can definitely. I can't see that. But
Say something.
I'm quite certain that what everyone is guessing, what all the odd, how they come out with the predictions and the Vegas odds or whatever, like.
What are they for you guys? What are they saying
right now? It's like 14 to 18. I'm like, dude, come on, man. And I might look like a fool in 5-6 months, and maybe we only had like 11 wins. Hopefully not. But in my mind, I don't think 14 to 18 does our team justice at all. But we'll see.
All right. You didn't answer that one either.
I don't know a specific number, though. I really don't.
No,
part of it too is we've been kind of warned not to answer these types of questions.
NBA players seem to be like very media training fun.
Yes.
I really appreciate this. Awesome.
No worries. Thank you.
How you doing, Jerry? I've got so many questions, but I'm going to try to limit it to 2 or 3. One is, obviously a lot of movement in the NBA this year with, in particular, the Warriors, becoming Kevin Durant. Similar to the question about how many games you think the Nets are going to win, how many games you think the Warriors are going to win?
How many did they win last year?
73.
I'd probably say 73. I mean, it's hard to pass that, and it's a new team. They lost some guys, and it takes some time to gel, but they're so talented. So I would definitely say like a 70 would be a good benchmark for them. Like if I was on the Warriors, they'd be like, hey, if we won 70, that'd be a great season for us.
Do you think Steph Curry is the best point guard in the league?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think like I personally like him a lot. Obviously, I play with him. He's a friend of mine. I asked him questions about Sure.
You talked about the racist talk that you got in college and after. What's the best non-racist trash talk you ever received while playing? Either made you laugh or just was so good?
I don't know. No one really.
It's all racist.
I don't know. To be honest, I keep to myself a lot on the court, so no one really says much to me. It's very rare that you see me like drawing with another player. I don't know. No one really says anything to me. That's kind of boring. I'm sorry. That's true. Yeah, no one really says anything.
We're gonna try to switch the alternate sides. So,
Oh, wow. Wait, is that the thing on the back?
That's the rematch jersey.
Oh, wow. They sell that?
Yeah, like last Monday.
Oh,
My friend just told me that I might have not gotten the stitched one.
it's okay. That's pretty awesome. I think I need to get one. That's our new uniform, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's sweet.
Yeah.
I like that.
you planted this guy. This is another advertisement.
This is subtle.
Really tactical.
This is very subtle. Can you talk about, like, you made a very thorough post on Reddit, Charlotte Hornets Reddit,
Yeah.
about your teammates and stuff, and so many people appreciated that, just like the level of detail you talked about each guy. I'm like lifelong Nets fan, and always been watching you, praying that you came to our team. Once we got Kenny on board, kind of like a little bit closer to the idea that you could be here.
Yeah.
Here you are. Well, can you talk about like your teammates, your relationship with your teammates, like who you bonded with, like
On the Nets.
personalities? Yeah, the Nets. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely, in this short time, I mean, we've only had camp for like, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks, but even in that short time, Brooke Lopez is a lot funnier than everybody knows or imagines.
He's a quiet guy, so.
Well, that's what you think. He is not a quiet guy, and he is hilarious, and I love it. Rondé is nonstop. Rondé is, me and Brooke. So Rondé always wants to, like, form this like triangle with me and Brooke, and he's always like, we're a triangle. But if I can describe it, Rondé's kind of like the little brother of this triangle, where it's like he's always drawing and talking trash, and then we laugh at him, and then sometimes he gets mad and goes away, and then obviously comes back by dinner time. That's like how I describe Rondé. He's hilarious. I love being around him. And then I would say Sean Kilpatrick is one of the guys who, when I talk about like really wanting it and wanting to be great and wanting to succeed, like I really respect his level of ambition.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hey,
Net fan since '91.
nice.
So, I really. Sorry. I really like how you talk about your faith being a public figure. I'm wondering if you get any resistance from your people, or say tone it down. How do you respond to that? And finally, what church are you going to?
Well, I haven't chosen a church yet. I've explored multiple churches and just haven't made a decision yet. I think for me, faith, like, I just don't want to be fake. That's the biggest thing, is I don't want to be fake. Like, actually, when I talk about these planning trips where it's like, what do you want your brand to be, or what do you want your legacy to be? Actually, one of the top ones is authentic, because it's easy to, say or whatever, but it's like really living it out. And that's the big reason why, like, I told our team and I told the organization, like, if we're going to put our arms around each other, like, actually do something about it. Otherwise, you're just fake. Or maybe you're not fake, but maybe you're not as sincere as you could be. So I just want to be authentic, and I think one of the things that maybe actually I'm kind of like I struggle with is like everyone builds me up to be this like really great human being, and I'm not saying that you guys are of course going to be like, oh my god, it's so humble. Like really what I struggle with is that everyone kind of builds me up into that, and I'm really not, and I've made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of dumb things, and but faith has helped me a lot with that. And my family knows, my friends know I've made so many mistakes. I snap on people or say things to people when I shouldn't. And, the public will never know these things, but they do. And I think, so when I talk about faith, it's real to me. It's that real to me that, like, I want to say it. But I don't want to say it in a way that's like, everyone else tunes comes out about it, or everyone thinks like, oh, he's just saying it to say it, which is why I try to be more selective about like how I say things, or what like the timing of certain things that I say. I really like try to think more deeply about. Even like social issues, like I wanted to say this a long time ago, or I wanted to do something about it a long time ago, and actually I thought about it for like 8 months, or like 8-9 months before I actually came out and said something, because I wanted to get to a point where myself, I was actually really deeply like involved or caring about it or doing